Hi, guys. I am recording this for the benefit of those of you who couldn't make it to our live parent meeting, the launch of our live parent meeting. So I'm going to go through the presentation that I will at the live meeting, and then please ask any questions either on Facebook or send me an email, kimberly.northup@missionlifesuccess.com, or even call and leave a message, and they'll pass that along to me, and I will answer your questions as soon as I can. So what I'm going to do is share my screen so you can see the presentation that I have, and we're just going to go through this as quickly as I can, but cover all the information. Okay, play. There we go. So this is me. If you haven't met me before, my name is Kim Northup. I'm a certified teacher in all these different areas. I've taught music, PE, special education, general education, you name it, I've taught it. I am a certified academic coach at an advanced level. I'm a mother of 3 adult children. 2 have ADHD and other learning differences. I also have ADHD. I'm a certified trainer in the Jack Canfield Success Principles, and I bring a lot of that mindset and positive thinking and that sort of thing into my programs as well. What I want you to know and get the most out of today is that you are not alone. I am going to set up a private group just for the participants of this group. I have a Facebook group, and that's more for the general public. I'm going to make this one private only for the members of this group, so it's an even safer place to ask questions and get support that you need. You can also, like I said before, email me questions, kimberly.northup@missionlifesuccess. And this was actually a slide intended for something else, so I'm just going to skip that last one. So I always like to start with a little bit of humor because we learn best when we are laughing. This one, I love it. Bookstore self-help section. And then, of course, the one he's holding, your problem is you don't do it my way. I often feel that way. So what is ADHD? It is real. I know you probably have had many people tell you that it's not a real thing and that it's just an issue of parenting or watching too much TV or something else that you're doing wrong, and that if you just gave them a good beating every once in a while, then this wouldn't be a problem. But ADHD has actually been researched since 1902. We know now they're saying it affects about 11% of school-age children, and it follows more than 3/4 into adulthood. It's largely genetic, so chances are that if your child has ADHD, either you or their your partner, their other parent has it as well. These are some images that kind of explain some of the differences. The prefrontal cortex is where our higher level thinking skills, our executive function skills, that planning and prioritization and those sort of things happen, and that's where there are a lot of weaknesses. Also, one of the things that happens in ADHD is that this is a synapse that you can see the picture of a nerve ending, and so signals have to travel across a synapse, which is kind of a break, via these neurotransmitters, and a lot of times there is a lack or a deficiency in the number of neurotransmitters that are available to carry signals across that synapse, and that's why ADHDers have problems with sometimes following instructions and that kind of thing. So what is ADHD? Well, if you go to the pediatrician and get a diagnosis, they're going to tell you that they have the inattentive kind or the hyperactive kind or anyway, there's three main symptoms that they talk about in the medical world: inattentiveness, impulsiveness, and hyperactivity. But that is just the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more involved. ADHD can cause delays in language skills, disorganization, sleep problems. It can cause them to take more risk than they should, procrastination, a lack of emotional control, inflexibility. They can be forgetful. There's just lots of things that are part of ADHD, and it's not just inattentiveness, impulsiveness, and hyperactivity. Another way that you hear people talk about it is that the ADHD brain is interest-based versus importance-based. So most people with neurotypical brains decide what is most important to do, and that's what they do first. ADHDers are always going after the shiny objects. So they're going after what is most interesting and not necessarily what is most important, and that's what gets us in trouble sometimes. And executive function, you heard me talk about that, those skills namely are initiation, the ability to get started, organization, time management, impulse control, emotional control, flexibility, working memory, focus, planning, metacognition. That's how we think about our thinking processes. So do we learn from our mistakes and that sort of thing? Do we know that something's going to get us in trouble and do it anyway? That's a metacognition issue. And then, of course, goal-oriented persistence. Can we stick with something until we actually accomplish it? There are lots of successful people with ADHD, so just because your child has ADHD does not mean that they're not going to be hugely successful. In fact, an extraordinary percentage of entrepreneurs have ADHD. And you might look up a book sometime by Robert Kiyosaki. He wrote Rich Man, Poor Man, but he also wrote a book called Why A students work for C students and B students work for the government. And so that kind of tells you ADHDers tend to think outside of the box, and so they're very creative and actually have really great ideas a lot of times and can be very, very successful when they learn to kind of tame the beast. But these are some successful people that are known to have had ADHD. So what we're really going to talk about today is effective communication, the basis of everything. I mean, power struggles are probably the thing I hear parents complain about them the most: meltdowns and power struggles. And if you're like me, this is what you thought everything was going to look like when you had children. You would love them and they would love you, and you would gaze into each other's eyes, and everything would be hunky-dory all the time because you would be such an amazing parent and your child would love you so much. But then you found that most of the time this is what the interactions actually looked like, and you found yourself not knowing what to do. You loved your child just as much as you thought you would, but you're also frustrated beyond belief. So here's another little cartoon. What we say to ADD teens: okay, Johnny, focus, pay attention, sit still and try harder, and what they hear: blah, Johnny, blah, Johnny, blah, 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 blah. And then not what I meant. Kate, I told you to go read. I am reading. The commenter said, awesome video. And this one said, love, 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 love. And so now let's get into the meat. So a lot of people, one of the biggest books recommended for parents of children with ADHD is by Dr. Ross Greene. It's called The Explosive Child. And he talks in there about collaborative problem solving. And I actually read that book years after I had developed this system of communicating, but it's very similar in nature. And I think this is a little bit easier to remember. I call it the 3 R's. And the 3 R's stand for recount, redirect, and reframe. And Before we get into what I mean by those three things, let's talk about the assumptions behind this method. First of all, I believe that everything that children say or do is a form of communication. So when they're acting out, they are telling you something that they may not be telling you in words. It may be by their actions. Secondly, I think all children already have what they need to be successful. I've heard it said many times, and well, even that cartoon that we saw earlier, the blah, 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 one kind of alluded to it. Telling a child with ADHD to just focus harder is like telling a child who is blind to just look harder. And I kind of agree with that. I mean, I think having realistic expectations is important, but I do believe that all children have some ability to focus and some ability to control themselves, and we can help them build on those abilities and make them stronger and stronger. So I think they do all have already some of what they need, and we just need to build those skills stronger. The final thing that I want you to know as one of the assumptions behind this method is that children have three basic healthy needs, and everything they do is a response to one of these needs. Their needs are experience. They need to go out and try new things to learn about the world. That's how they do it. They try stuff and they see what happens, and that's how they learn new things. So, you know, a young child might tip over a glass of milk to see what happens when, you know, and then watch the milk roll all over the floor. Are they being bad? They have the need for experience. That's all it is. It's frustrating for us, but it's not bad in and of itself. The second need that they have is for connection, and that one probably is the one that makes the most sense. They need to feel like they're connected, that they belong, that they're loved, and that they're appreciated and important. And so that's the need for connection. And the final need is for power. And when we use the word power, that just kind of makes parents, you know, the hair on the back of their neck stand up, and their shoulders rise, and it kind of has a negative connotation to it. But when I say power, what I mean is it's more strength. We all need to know that we have the ability to solve problems and get out of bad situations. We need to know that we have the ability to take care of ourselves. And so that's what I mean by power. We have to know that we can make choices and that we can take care of ourselves. And there is a lot of comfort, and there's a lot of what's the word I'm trying to use? I don't know. But anyway, yeah, it's very comforting to know that you are powerful enough to take care of yourself. And so that's what we mean by the word power. Okay, let's go through those 3 R's now. The very first one is recount. So the very first thing that you do when a child does something, and it can be something positive or negative, is you will describe what you see your child doing or feeling. And what I mean by that is if they get angry and push over or throw a toy on the floor, you can say, "Man, you're really angry. Something has you upset." Or if they ignore you while, if they're playing with something and you're telling them to get up and go get their shoes on so you can go, and they're ignoring you, you might say, "You really like playing with that toy. You don't want to stop." And so you're just describing what you see. To do this effectively, you have to stay in the moment. You're not making any judgments. You're not, not judging what you think they are intending to do. That that they're trying to upset you, or that they're trying to show that they don't have to do what you say. Keep the judgments out of it. Stay in the moment and just describe what you see. And remember, you can't see intention. You can only see actions and feelings. This is a time when we're trying to build that connection. This is not the step where we're doing parenting. Leave the parenting out of this. We're just connecting with the child. When we connect with them, then we're going to get much better response later on. The other thing to remember is, especially with young children, avoid questions. Questions are so intimidating, and they suggest that there's a right answer, and you're not going to get as much information because they're going to be trying to figure out whether they're giving you the answer that you want rather than providing you with information that might help you solve the problem later on. So when you recount, remember, stay in the moment, don't make judgments, don't try to parent, just simply connect with your child, show that you understand what they are going through, and acknowledge intention. What I mean by that is if, say they kicked a ball in the house and they broke something and you can see they were surprised by it, you might say, oh, you were surprised as I was when, you kicked that ball softly and you were surprised when it still knocked over the lamp and broke it. And so you're not putting them as much on the defensive that way. And again, avoid questions. The second step is to redirect. So this doesn't mean that we are pushover parents when we use this method. We can hold our boundaries firm, but we're going to redirect. So this is a place where we're going to encourage some problem solving. We're going to give them opportunities to think of acceptable alternatives. So you might say something like, oh, right, drawing on the walls is not okay, but drawing on paper is. Are you really, so if we started right from the beginning, you really like drawing. But drawing on the walls is not okay. What could you draw on that would be okay with me? And they might come up with an answer themselves, or you might have to give them an answer. You could draw on this paper. You could use chalk on the sidewalk. You could, you could find a way to solve that problem. So what you do is this is kind of the negotiation phase. You acknowledge that they have a problem, that there's something, and that you have a problem, and then you're trying to find an acceptable alternative to both. And that does not mean that you have to give in. And in fact, you don't even have to give good reasons for for your problem. It can be simply, I just don't like that noise in the house, and that's not okay with me. So there's got to be a way that you can have fun and we don't have that noise in the house. And so, they might say, well, I could just go outside and do it, or maybe I could just turn the volume down. But they could start coming up with solutions because they know that you're trying to help them solve their problem, and they're going to try to help you solve yours. So that's redirect. The final step is to reframe, and that's where we're ending on a good note. We're going to find and label the good in the behavior that we see. We're only giving genuine praise, though. So we can find something good in everything that a kid's done, but don't just do the, oh, good job, or they know when they've done a good job and when they haven't done a good job. So sometimes what we have to do is simply point out the right things about what has happened in a situation. For instance, if they throw something, like I had this discussion with a mother the other day. So she said her son had a meltdown, and he went over to the couch and he picked up, and she said she could see he kind of scanned, and then he picked up this back scratcher and he's beating the back of the couch as hard as he can, and then the back scratcher broke, and and then he melted down even further. And so anyway, I told her that the way that I would have handled that situation is well, first we would have gone through, wow, you're really angry, you feel the need to hit something, and I would have just left it at that and let him work it out. But when he did break that that back scratcher, I would have said something like, wow, you were really angry and you wanted to hit something, so you chose to pick up something that you didn't care about to hit the couch with. And you know, and I might have even said, right next to that was your Xbox controller, but you knew you didn't want that to break, so you picked something that wasn't important to you and you knew wasn't so important to me. And so you're pointing out to that child that they do have a little bit of control. Then they have the ability, when they see that little bit of control in themselves, they can build on that the next time around. Whereas if you've just berated them for being totally out of control and breaking something, then you've reinforced that concept that they have of themselves as a person who has zero control. And then they're not even going to try to exhibit any in the future. But if they can see in themselves just that little bit that they've shown, then maybe next time they can show just a little bit more, and then it will continuously grow. Now, this is just a really, really brief overview, and I'm going to go into great detail in this about this over the next few weeks in different segments and stuff. And I'm going to teach you some other tools and and how to use this further. I just wanted you to have the basic framework so you could start practicing a little bit. Now, does this mean that if you do this, that's going to be instantaneously the end to the power struggles or the meltdowns? No, it's going to take some time. I think you will find that they're a little less intense and they maybe end a little bit sooner, but you're still going to have some. But over time, as they realize that this really is different, that you've changed your approach to interacting with them, then they're going to feel safer about using this, and they won't put up those defensives so readily, and this will work much better every time that you use it. So it will take some time. At first, they're going to be thinking, what is she up to? This is a trick, right? And I'm not falling for this. And so it's not going to be the perfect answer right away, but it will, over time, change the way that you interact with your child, and it will almost make the meltdowns disappear. It is a life-changing way of communicating. Take it from me. We had some really rough times. I can tell you some stories about that would curl your hair, some things that happened in our household before we started doing things this way. And so give it a shot and ask me questions if you have specific questions about certain circumstances. If you tried it, it didn't work, and you want to know what could have gone, how you could have done it. Yeah, those are the kinds of things I want you to ask me. That's what I'm here for, is to help you clarify how to use it. That's the difference between having a parenting group and just reading a book. Books are great, but sometimes the application of the knowledge is where you need the help, and I can help you. I've been there. So please ask those questions. How do you know if you did it well? Well, of course, you're going to judge somewhat by how your child feels. If they're beating themselves up, if they feel really bad about themselves, maybe you have a little bit more work to do. If they're feeling pretty good about themselves, then you probably did a great job. If they're feeling so-so, you probably did an okay job. If they're feeling worse about themselves, then you probably ought to give me a call or send me a message or something, and so I can help you figure out how to try it differently the next time around. So why does this work? It sounds silly. It sounds ridiculous to a lot of people. Well, when the child knows that we understand, they typically provide us more information, which helps us solve the problem. And when they're encouraged to solve their own problems, they're building self-esteem and confidence, and their self-belief about their ability to do certain things improves. And when we take the time to see things from the child's perspective, we just have more empathy, and we don't get as emotionally charged about it. We don't, it's not suddenly all about us, because that's what happens a lot of times. I know, I've been there. I'm a parent too, and it's like, why are you doing this to me? And but when we're taking the time to describe what the child sees and we're looking at it from their perspective, it keeps us from getting so emotionally charged up and either angry or upset or whatever we may be feeling at the time. And finally, by looking for the good, we're staying positive and we just enjoy our children more. When you notice those good things about them and when you see what, you know, if you're looking for the reasons, you know, those three basic needs that they have, the motivation for their behavior, when you see that, then oh, we feel so much better about them, and parenting is just more joyful. So I would encourage you to try it out this week. And again, ask any questions that you have when you try it out. If it doesn't work, if it does work, let me know that too. I want to hear those great stories too. Other parents do too. And I hope that you can join us on the Zoom call next week when it's live. I always like to see the faces. I think the meetings have much more energy when there's more people on them, and I do a better job because somebody always asks a good question that I can answer, and that just helps make a better experience for everyone. So thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Have a great one.